All right, John and I have a thing called the Old Guys Podcast with the Pokes Report because we're the old guys. You know, Marshall and Zach are young. They do a younger guy podcast. We do an older guy podcast, which I hope doesn't reflect that we sound or think old. I think it's just that we've had a lot of experience and we come from that. John, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I know you're getting away a little bit, freshening up for the upcoming school year. Are you still of the mind that bringing students back to campus at Oklahoma State is A going to happen and B is the right thing? I know. I guess I'm asking you if you say no to second guess the decision makers, which you're probably not going to do, but what's your thoughts on not talking football here, just talking about students on campus because we see all the school districts in the state of Oklahoma. Yesterday, Edmond delayed theirs slightly, and they're going to do an A-B schedule where students come some days and don't come others, and some students come those other days and don't. They're going to split it up. But your thoughts on students on campus?
Well, I think it's going to happen. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
plan. I keep telling everybody that asks me that's the plan until it's not the plan. And there was a town hall yesterday for students and anybody that and parents, I would guess too, that wanted to ask questions and because there's a lot of questions that students and parents would have, right, as we approach this semester. And but yeah, it's full speed ahead. We're fully preparing to have students in the journalism building. I know that. There's already a lot of precautionary things that have taken place, a lot of shields up in different offices. There are only doors you can enter and only doors you can exit, and stairways are the same way. Some are up, some are down. It's really different, especially in a small building like ours is. But yeah, I think we're preparing for it. And to answer your other question, I think it needs to happen. I mean, you just can't keep delaying this, and um, I'm sure the numbers are going to spike. We've seen that before in Stillwater, just by kids coming back to town. Um, and fortunately, and I don't say this with any insensitivity. Fortunately, it's an age group that does well if they do perhaps get the virus. And so old guys like me who probably worry a little bit, but no, I think it's going to happen. I think it should happen, and it's going to be interesting. I'll say that.
You and I were talking, and again, and I was in the West End zone this morning. Now, again, it doesn't seem like it's very crowded over there, and I did not see any players. The players were, I think, they were already over in the Sherman Smith Center and going through a walkthrough with the rain and stuff going on. Um, so, I never felt I was just going over there to see a couple of people. I never felt uncomfortable or anything. You mentioned that you might, though, teach some of your classes outside. And I thought, well, that's cool. I mean, there is plenty of space out there around Old Central. And I think having some outside classes is not a bad idea.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to one get outside the confined spaces of a classroom, which even in the best of times aren't ideal. And maybe it adds an element of fun. And there's plenty of things we can do outside. It's a reporting class that I teach. I don't know if you know this or not. They're going to be some of the larger classes. In fact, one of the professors in my building is teaching a class in the West End Zone because they're finding big spaces that they can accommodate large numbers of students. So they're talking about Gallagher Iba as well. Yeah, so the university is really spreading out across campus, trying to find ways to social distance and do the best they can.
So you're telling me there will be students that will pick up their schedules, and if they're in like one of those old large lecture classes, it might say for a building and room, West End Zone, West End.
Well,
I
so
mean,
I was talking to Max Andrews
section
because
O and P.
yeah, so Max Andrews told me, says, "Hey, I'm teaching one of the big classes over in Boone Pickens Stadium. He said it's W5 something, and I said that's got to be the West End Zone. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Well, you know what? A lot of people don't realize it after the earth shook with Chuba Hubbard's text message or Twitter message, that I'm not going to play until things change. The initial, I mean, this will probably eventually come out mainstream, and I think it's come out a little bit some through the Mike Holder and Chad Weiberg investigation that Coach Holder spoke of in that Zoom conference. But the initial meetings between Mike Gundy and his staff and his team after the Chuba Twitter message, those were in the stadium. Those were in the West End Zone where players could space out and they could look eyeball to eyeball, even at a distance. And that's where Mike Gundy first started to correct, I guess, the lack of a relationship that Chuba and some of the other players felt that they had with the head coach. So it's
yep. And I
already been
haven't
put to
my
use.
yeah in my reporting class because I'm adjunct. It hasn't gone live yet. I'm not sure where I'm teaching, but hey, maybe I'll be teaching in the West End Zone. Well, it's a reporting class. I'm sure Mike Gundy will love having uh, 40 young journalists roaming around his building over there. That'd be great. I'm kidding,
Yeah,
of
but he
course.
knows he knows places to go to avoid people that would be roaming around the building, so to speak. All right, you wrote a story the other day. It was loosely based off some stuff that Brett McMurphy, an Oklahoma State graduate of the back then the School of Journalism, which is what it was when I was. Now it's the School of Strategic Media, but. Your thoughts on football, just your updated thoughts on football, because I'm going to come with some really pointed ones here at the right after you go.
Well, I mean, I just go with what I see and hear, and and you're connected obviously at OSU, and I know Brett's really well connected across the country. And the one thing, and he said there's like 25% chance of the season. He said there's a 0% chance it starts on time, which is interesting. Um, the thing that I might have taken issue with in the story though was that hey, college presidents are not risk takers. Um, in some ways, you could say not having a football season is a big risk taking adventure because they need it. Their athletic department as a whole is reliant on football. And so that's a big risk. And I've said it a couple of times. I've written it in stories for you guys and for magazines at OSU that Burns Hargis sees athletics as the front porch to giving at OSU. You bring somebody back to a game, maybe who hasn't been a donor. They see all the excitement and they get involved with athletics. And then the next thing you know, they're pointing, hey, you're a geology grad. How about giving some money to school of geology? Things like that. And so don't discount the impact that football has on buildings going up all across campus. Um, and so that would be missing in some ways. And so I don't think that they will just cross that off the list without some serious and very heavy consideration.
Nah, and I think we're going to definitely see football. I would counter Brett. I think we're going to see it as soon as August 29th. Um, I think one of the reasons that the ACC presidents and chancellors may not announce anything today. The reason Bob Bowlesby is waiting. The reason I think Greg Sankey and the SEC will wait a little longer as well is they know what's going to happen. Let's be honest. I mean,
Sure.
all you got to do is look at the way journalism has been going all summer long, with regards from everything from the COVID-19 to the social, coverage of social injustice and protests and so forth. The media is in the mood to attack the establishment. That's just what we're seeing. I think not I don't want to say wholesale, but that's the theme that we see. So We didn't see the media second guess the Ivy Leagues or the historic black colleges and universities or the junior college ranks. We haven't seen them second guess anybody that's called their season off or postponed it until the spring. They're waiting to second guess somebody who's going to play. And the big boys are going to play, and they're going to play here soon. And as soon as they announce they're going to play, um, the Pat Forties and who's the guy? Who's the guy at USA Today? Um,
Oh, Wolken.
Dan Woken.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
people are going to be on the attack, and they're going to say that you guys are being ridiculous. And then it's going to be up to college football, the coaches, the support staffs, in a way, the presidents, to do this and do it right. I yesterday Phil Steele corrected me to a degree. I thought all this business with the Miami Marlins, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is just gonna sink anybody doing anything. And Phil Steele said, "Wait a second. This let's see how this plays out. This may help college football because what has Bob Bowlesby said all along? We're going to see some positive tests. We're going to see some hiccups. How do you overcome the hiccups? Well, Major League Baseball has a hiccup they need to overcome. Let's see how they do it. Do they bring up a bunch of players from an alternate training site and put them in Marlin uniforms? And now all of a sudden, next Monday, when the Marlins resume their season, they've got a bunch of players who are clean with regards to the COVID, and they can go ahead and continue the season. The amazing thing is the Phillies haven't had any. So apparently, whatever they were doing within the context of competition, people wearing masks and baseball is naturally a socially distanced sport anyway. Um, but interaction at batting practice and so forth. Apparently, whatever they were doing at that time worked because the Phillies don't. At least they haven't had any positive tests yet. So um, I think we're going to see some lessons learned in the positive side from this Marlins deal. And I think, I can tell you this with Oklahoma State the offense and defense hasn't worked on the same field together yet. And
Mm.
in some cases, the players within offense and defense are split up enough so that if one or two defensive linemen got positive, it wouldn't mean the entire defensive line goes positive. Now, at some point, you're going to have to bring them all together in fall camp, at least more of them together, because you're going to have to practice and you're going to have to hit and simulate the things that would happen in a real football game. But I think all the time, the people that are putting on the sport and conducting practices and will bring their teams into games. I think they're learning how to do things maybe in a smart way that will keep disaster uh, away. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind they're going to play, and there's no doubt in my mind that the media is going to backlash on them.
Yeah, you can bet on that, and you're right. I've said this all along. There'll be the schools have the advantage a little bit of watching the MLB and watching the NBA when they get going, watching the NHL, and they're in contact with those people. They're following their protocols and procedures and learning from those, and they'll take all the help they can get as this thing moves forward. So you're right. There will be lessons to be learned. There will be things that they can ask and say, "Hey, what worked? What didn't work?" And they'll be a little bit ahead of the game in that regard. And then things will happen, and they'll have to pivot and adjust as well. Not just do with athletics, but across campus.
John, here's another thing to think about too, and nobody wants to talk about these things either. Um, I know Oklahoma has come out and reported a bunch about how good their guys have been, and they had what they have. I forget what their initial number was, 8 or 9, something positive test initially, but they've done fabulously since. But most of these schools have not announced positive tests, including Oklahoma State. Um, I think LSU, Clemson is the school I hear has had more positives than anybody in the country. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
there's some people that will tell you Clemson's squad is 2/3 through having had the COVID-19. that
Wow.
LSU is probably 50-50 with their team. I think Oklahoma State's had a significant, I don't know what it is, but I think they've had a significant number of cases. And I think there's a number of schools out there that have. Texas, I think, has had a significant number of cases. Um, I hear Baylor, even though they haven't reported squat and don't have to really. Um, I hear Baylor's had a pretty good number of cases. So I think there are going to be some teams, and we don't know how long the antibodies last or how long you can go not getting it again. We know it'll last a little bit. Again, it depends on who you read and what the latest research is. But I think there are going to be some teams come into fall camp and into the season with a number of their kids having antibodies and not going to have a chance to get it at least early in the year. So, um, here's the thing. This is the one thing that I would say has to be concrete. And maybe you don't release it to the media, but you have to have some sort of clearinghouse, or whether it's the conferences themselves or they come up with some general group. But going into each week with those tests 72 hours in advance of games, somebody has to be the people you report to.
Yeah.
I don't think you exchange, on Friday, the AD at one school calls the AD at the other, said, "Well, how many of you had? How many of we had? And here's what that." I think, I think there has to be some central office or organization that everybody has to report their testing to, and then there has to be a protocol, if as to what do you do with the positive test players, and how many positives is too many to go play a game. I mean, somebody's got to be in charge of that.
Yeah, no doubt. And those would be interesting telephone calls, wouldn't they? But yeah, so many new bridges we're crossing. It seems like every day. And then, as we get closer to having students back on campus and start playing games, I mean, hey, the soccer team opens, 2 weeks from Friday? What are they going to do?
Yes, against TCU. Is that
Yeah.
right? No, SMU maybe.
No, it's TCU.
It
And it's
is
like, what are they
TCU.
going to do? That's coming
Yeah.
up real quick. And so yeah, there's going to be so many things to do and to learn, and it's all fascinating and not a welcome way, but it is fascinating to see how we handle it and how we adjust to it, and how we come out on the other end of it.
Here's the other thing. We've seen baseball, nobody in the stands. Uh, the NBA is playing in a bubble. There won't be anybody in the stands in Orlando. Um, I think college football is going to be the one that breaks the ice on that. And I don't think we're going to see 50% of the fans like Texas is talking about. I think we may see 20, somewhere between 20 and 40% of capacity. And I think what you're going to see, and this will be interesting, is certain sections with people spread out, and then completely empty sections in between. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll have the band, but they'll be spread out. I think you'll have at Oklahoma State the paddle people, but it may be half the paddle people spread out. I think you'll see friends and family of the players, and then the top. It'll be have to be like just the top level donors, suite holders, maybe some club people, but I think there will be some fans. I just think it will be very, very spread out and sparse. That's my prediction. And I've talked to some people over in athletics at Oklahoma State, and they say at the end, if the governor of the state doesn't make a decree, it may be President Burns Hargis that decides how many people get to be in Boone Pickens Stadium. That may fall on his lap. Uh, what the crowd situation will be.
Well, you're spreading optimism with that kind of talk, because I think a lot of people are prepared for no fans. So if they get 20 to 40, I think that's at least optimistic and something for some folks to hold on to and hang on to, because I think it makes a difference. And I don't know how many of the baseball games you've watched, I mean, I welcome the fake crowd noise just because it's really awkward without it. So if you get a little real crowd noise in there, that'd be fantastic.
You forget, I was at the All-State football game last week. So, so
Yeah,
I've already
yeah.
seen I've already seen a stadium at, I'm gonna bet it was at 80 to 90% capacity that night at OBU. So I know over on the other side from where we were sitting, they were butt to butt, cheek to cheek over on that side on the home side. We my wife and I sat on the side facing the sun, which was not comfortable, but it was where we could space out and
Mm,
feel a little bit better. Over on the other side, and the mask were on initially to get in the stadium, but I noticed as the game kicked off, it was about a 50-50 mask deal.
mm.
So having seen that, I think I think I think you can space people out, especially in a stadium as big
Yeah,
as Boone Pickens. I think you can do that. I
I think
understand
some of
why
the
baseball did it the way they did it, but
and
go
I
ahead.
think some of the major questions you hear is just the biggest concerns seem to be getting them in and out of the stadium, right? And so it's like they'll have to figure out a way to do that, slowly and in waves and that sort of thing, rather than have everybody, just blowing in through the entrances at the same time or leaving at the same time. So yeah,
Well,
you can
now
definitely space them out in a stadium.
here's the thing. This is what's really kind of cool is they're doing an electronic ticket now. Okay, if you're doing an electronic ticket, you can actually put a report time or a, this is the time that you can enter the stadium, or this is your designated time to come through the gate, and you
Yep.
can actually do that. And I could see that being something that's on your electronic ticket, is you have a pretty strict time to show up and go through the gate. Um, we've got a caller on, so let's bring him in. You're on Sports Talk and the Old Guys Podcast. Go ahead.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for taking my call. I was wondering if there are any plans to handle tailgating. Are
Well,
they
I don't
gonna?
know what John. I don't know what John's heard. I've heard that they're at least looking into it. But see, here's the problem: when you do you open up the tailgating, it's your property, it's university property,
Mm-hmm.
but are they going to have somebody out there, going from group to group saying you're too close, socially
Right.
distance more?
Uh-huh.
I don't know, but I at least know that they have considered it and they're looking into it.
But no definite plans as of yet.
Nothing
There are
definite.
no definite plans for anything yet. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing is definite. Everything is
that's
fluid,
true.
and so, but you can bet that they're at least having those discussions and trying to figure out, I'm sure, a way to make that happen. And it may be similar to inside the stadium. They may have somebody, and there's only so many slots allowed where people can tailgate, and there might have to be, a few car slots in between. So I'm just spitballing here, but I'm sure they've talked about it. I'm sure they don't want to turn people away, but there's a lot of things that you have to consider.
And I do know this, that fans have expressed to the university, or at least to Mike Holder and Larry Reese and the folks involved in administration, that even if they're not allowed in the stadium, they would like to have space and tailgate outside of it on game day. That's, and let's remember, for a lot of people out there, yeah, going to the game is a big thing, but having their tailgate is just as big to a lot of these people. So,
Mhm.
we're gonna have
These are all
to
good
we're gonna
stories for my students, right?
yeah, they are. That'll be a great story to come up and investigate that.
All right. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, appreciate it. Wish we could tell him something concrete, but hey, when we can't even say concrete that anybody is going to be in the stadium. Now, the one thing I do feel pretty concrete on, that there's going to be a football season. There's going to be some football games. Now, what they'll look like, when they'll be, I think they'll be on time, but how long they'll last, uh, Will the season be interrupted? That's where I think we're learning with the Marlins. I think if somebody goes off the rails, I think you're just going to see the other teams keep playing, and that may even be in a conference. That okay, well, the rest of us are okay. Let's keep playing. I
Yep.
think that's going to happen. This is going to be a football season for the ages, and there'll be books. I feel like Howard Schnellenberger, but I feel like I'm going to be saying this will be a truism. There are going to be books written about this football season.
Yeah, absolutely there will. And you know, the interesting thing is this too, is that hey, everybody wants this. I think everybody's pulling for it. So let's let it happen. And I say everybody. I know that you made those comments earlier about the media, and there are going to be some that are locked and loaded, ready to go. But I think everybody wants this if we can make it happen. So let's see. I know that they've got smart people thinking about these things and contemplating and sharing ideas, and let's just cross our fingers because it's going to be here pretty quick.
Hey, John, I appreciate it.
All right, Robert,
So,
take care.
all right, you take care and be careful. And yeah, that'll be it for the old guys podcast.